Hello everyone, I'm Stacy Mann, the Early Years and Childcare Subject Specialist here at NCFE. I work on all of the cash qualifications, and this particular podcast today is all for our CPD carousel, which is part of our careers toolkit. I'm joined today by the wonderful Shelley Owens. Shelley, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yes, I'm Shelley Owens. I am a mental health and wellbeing coach for children, young people and adults as well. And I work in nurseries and schools across the Wolverhampton area, helping children, young people and the staff as well with their mental health and wellbeing.
That sounds like you said that so matter-of-factly, but what an important job. So today we're talking about physical development in the early years. So our theme this term has been all around physical development, and that sort of grew out of thinking about the pandemic and thinking about how children have perhaps had less physical activity. They may have had more in some cases. So really about that importance of physical activity and the benefits of physical activity as well. So do you find that in all of the sort of hats that you wear across the week?
Yeah, in all of the work that I do, physical activity or lack of physical activity has an impact on mental health wellbeing and on children's development in particular. And something that I know that I've talked to other people about in the past is how as human beings, we've become saturated in cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And this doesn't just affect us adults. There's been lots of conversation with adults about this, particularly in the press. However, people are forgetting the effect it's having on the children as well, because it does have an effect on the children. If your children are indoors all the time, if your children are not stimulated physically, if they're not getting that physical, that exercise and that physical input, it is going to have an effect on their development, and that's their cognitive development as well, not just their physical development.
Yeah, I think sometimes we forget about that link, don't we, between cognitive and physical, and how they are interlinked, and how one can really support the other and vice versa. So when we're talking about physical activity, are we thinking Joe Wicks? Are we thinking, let's all get in front of the telly and do a bit of aerobics?
No, physical. When I talk about physical development and physical activity, I'm not just talking about your gross motor skills. I'm not just talking about going outside and running around, climbing, running, skipping, jumping, hopping. All of that is really important, because obviously it helps with developing muscles and bones. It also helps fire up the brain and helps to get the brain ready for learning. It's an absolute essential part of a child's day before they start learning, get them running around. But it's also those fine motor skills, playing games that are turn taking, and they physically, think about games where you're using your hands and playing with Play-Doh, and all of that is really important, and that is physical activity as well. People forget that sometimes. You think, oh, my child needs to be physically active, take them out for a walk, tick. It's so much more than that. It's so much more.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you mentioned the fine motor skills, actually, because that can be a really useful self-regulation tool as well, and have that link to well-being, can't it?
Absolutely. One of the best ways to help calm down anybody is with your hands and your fingers. So if you use Play-Doh and you're stimulating your nerve endings in your hands while you're doing this, it's going to send a message back to your brain. It's going to help you to calm down. It's a great stress reliever. It's a therapeutic massage technique that we use on the hands, but actually, if you give your child plasticine or Play-Doh, it's going to have a similar effect.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and sort of pennies dropped, light bulbs are coming on for me, even though I know that. I think we need that reminder all the time, don't we, that actually those connections are really, really important between your brain and the rest of your body.
Yeah.
Wow.
Any physical activity, whether they're, those gross motor skills or fine motor skills, any physical activity is going to help with brain development. It's going to help with that physical development. It's also going to sort of boost that confidence and self-esteem that children have, that independence that they can have. A lot of time when they play outside and they're running around, or even indoors, you're dancing and being creative and moving your body, or doing a Joe Wicks workout, whatever it is that they're doing, it's helping them to learn how to control their body, those movements, and that it's independent, it's free, and being creative, using the creative part of your brain is very important for mental health and well-being, and of course that cognitive development as well.
Yeah. What effects do you think it has on behaviour? Because I think in a lot of schools, maybe not in the early years as much, but in a lot of schools we have this sort of punishment really of not going outside if you've misbehaved or haven't completed your work and things like that. What do you think that helps with behaviour? Do you think it hinders?
If you keep a child indoors and you're sitting them down at a table and they're not able to move their body, it is really going to potentially affect their behaviour. If you've kept them in because they've not been behaving well, that's a big red flag for me, because one of the first things you need to be thinking about is getting their bodies moving. It might not be possible for them to go outside and move their bodies outside. You could take them into a hall, you could take them into a small room, a space where they can move their bodies, whether that is moving their bodies and playing with a stress ball or playing with some plasticine or some Play-Doh, something physical with their hands, getting some stretches in. Those are the first things that I would do. The first thing I would do is make sure that that child is moving their body, because when you start stretching your body and moving your body, you start to get rid of that cortisol out of your body, that stress hormone. You start to release endorphins into your body. You also are going to start to take their brain focus away from things that are bothering them, because you can only hold one thought at a time. So if you're getting your child concentrating on something else, what you're doing for them is giving them a timeout. You're giving them a break. So the idea of a timeout, sitting them down somewhere and restricting them, is complete polar opposite of what you should be doing.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense, does it?
It doesn't make any sense.
So how do you think we can use physical activity as a tool in our daily routines? What sort of things can we do, specifically in the early years?
Specifically in the early years, establishing a pattern of behaviour is really important. What you do now with your child is going to, or with children, if you're talking about a nursery, is what you do with those children now is going to set a pattern of behaviour that's going to last them for the rest of their lives. It's very important that physical activity and moving your body and being physical is part of your daily routine. Because if you think about how it's affected children being stuck indoors or not being able to get out and explore and do some of the very physical activities that we could or would want to do with them over the pandemic, it's affected their physical development, their cognitive development. It's affected their mental health and well-being. It's affected their ability to form relationships. So it has such a big impact. It's very important. So every single day you need to be moving your body. They need to be moving. Now, whether that is being outdoors, going out for walks, exploring, using your senses, whether it's standing inside and moving your body and stretching it in a particular way. So that's yoga. We do stretches. We don't do yoga specifically. What we're doing is yoga like stretches and stretching your body and moving it and making sure we're moving in a particular way, tightening those muscles and then stretching them out. Something as simple as that is going to help your child. Sitting still and keeping them constricted is not going to help. Dancing, put some music on and dancing. That's my favorite thing to do with the children. Getting them making shapes. A lot of the movement that I do in my sessions, particularly thinking about nursery age children, is storytelling. So we do storytelling, and I will tell a story. This week's story has been, I wish I were a pilot. So I wish I were a pilot. Moving your body. I wish I was an astronaut, and you're pretending to put on your boots and all of these movements, and so you're pulling and pushing and doing all of these things, and then jumping up and pretending you're a space rocket, and making the shape of, when we think about the weather, making the shapes and being rain and being sunshine and being rainbows, and just all of this movement that you can be so creative and have so much fun. And I think fun is a key part of it. It's creating that. You're planting a seed. You're planting a seed in these children that physical activity is fun, it's enjoyable, and it's part of your daily routine.
Yeah. And the adults can get involved in that as well, and that will help their well-being too, won't it?
Absolutely.
I think like you talked about with them sitting still for long periods of time, I think it's really important to consider what their journey to you has been like. And sometimes they have been strapped in a car seat, haven't they? They've been
Yes.
woken up early. They might have wanted a bit more sleep, but they've been woken up early. They might have had a really quick breakfast. You know, we all know how important breakfast is, but they might have had a really quick one, or you can wait until you get to nursery to have it. Then they might be strapped in a car seat or strapped in their pushchair, and then it's all quite quick, isn't it? It's all
It is.
like, we've got to do this, we've got, and there's no autonomy within that. They have no autonomy over the fact that they've got to be at nursery at a certain time, or mummy or daddy or whoever has got to be at work at a certain time. So that cortisol is already starting to bubble up, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So then they arrive at the setting, and straight away you might have the doors open so that they can go straight outside if they want to, and not have this sort of restraint of, let's all sit down, let's all let's see what the weather's like, because actually you can go outside and feel what the weather's like.
Oh my gosh,
You had a lovely story, Shelley, about umbrellas. Can you share that with us?
Yes, in my previous role, I specifically worked with toddlers, and I found myself at the end of that role with 20 umbrellas that I didn't need. So I donated them to one of the nurseries that I work in. And I went into the nursery the other day and was thanked by one of the leaders, which was lovely, because it had been raining, it had been miserable, and instead of the children having to stay indoors and be restricted indoors, they used that as an opportunity to learn. They went outside, they put up their umbrellas, and they listened to the sound of the rain falling on the umbrellas. They were able to think about the smells they could smell, put their hands out from underneath the umbrellas and feel the rain on their hand. Even that is physical activity, it's physical development, feeling that rain falling. Is it cold? Is it warm? How does it feel? It's wet. And just to enjoy being outside in the rain. The rain isn't an excuse not to go outside at all. It's an experience. It's something that they can experience, especially. And so it was lovely that they could go and do that. I really felt lucky that I could pass that on for them to use and have that as an activity and an opportunity to learn.
How important do you think it is for the adults in those situations to be enthusiastic and role model all of these physical activities for the children?
It's vital. It's vital. Children mirror, they copy our every move. They hang on our every word. So if we are going to say, oh no, it's wet, we're not going out today, that's a habit that they will form. They would just accept that, well, it's wet, you can't go out today. If you say, well, it's wet, so let's put on our raincoat and our boots, and let's go outside and go and jump in some puddles. Let's go and splash outside. You don't have to stay outside as long as you would if it was a beautiful sunny day. Of course you don't, but you can make it a learning experience and get them out. Being physically active it's just so important. I run Relaxed Kids sessions, and move, play and stretch are they're the first three things we do at the beginning of every single session. We bring their energy levels up. We don't say, right, sit down and relax. In order to be able to relax, first you have to meet this big crescendo. You have to get up there first and get really energetic and get the endorphins going and get all of that energy, build it up. We talk about the brain body connection a lot, and obviously I don't talk about it specifically to the children, but as adults, the nursery leaders, the school teachers, they understand what it is that we're doing. We're focusing on that brain body connection. We're making sure that they're communicating properly. It's a two-way system. We have to make sure that we've got those connections formed, and this is what we're doing with the children. Get in there, we move our bodies, we get nice and warmed up, we're warming up our muscles, we're getting nice and warmed up, we're having lots of fun, we're telling stories and being aeroplanes or hot air balloons or whatever it is we're doing that week, and we're having an exciting fun time. We're making moving our bodies fun. We're learning so much about how our bodies work at 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, but those are the times when we're learning what we can do with our bodies. And learning that we might find something difficult one week, and then the next week we practiced a bit and fantastic, I can do that now. Don't forget, a lot of the children that I work with, they're at an age where they can't jump with 2 feet off the ground, and then suddenly they can, and it's like the most amazing, most powerful thing they can do.
Yeah.
And then we start with the stretches as well. So we're playing games and we're having fun and doing turn taking and watching what other people are doing. There's that social interaction, that turn taking and sharing and building those relationships. And when it comes to the stretching, that's when we're starting to begin to relax and unwind, because that stretching, the action of stretching those muscles out, induces a relaxation response in the brain. So to say to a child, sit down, legs crossed and breathe in and out, that's just not going to work. You've got to get them ready for that point. It's preparation.
I think it's exactly the same for the adults. You said that you do these things with adults as well, and relax kids as a just relax or charge up maybe, and you need to do that yourself as well, don't you? You can't just sit down and just, right, I'm going to meditate, or I'm going to do a guided visualization, or I'm going to relax. You can't get to that point without going through those stages first, can you?
It's preparation. You have to do the preparation work. You have to prepare your brain to relax. You can't just go, right, okay. I personally know this. Rushing around all day, and then bedtime can be quite busy as well if you've got children rushing again. You don't suddenly go, oh, well, actually, it's 9:30. I wanted an early night. I'll go to bed now.
Yeah.
You need time to unwind, and it's layers. You sort of unpeel each layer until you get to that point. So that's exactly what we do with the children. And my sessions with the children, they're quite short, but in that very short amount of time, you can achieve so much.
Yeah.
Just starting in the right place.
Yeah. And to be ready to learn as well.
Absolutely. If you go outside and you run around, or if you turn on some music and you jump up and down, what you're actually doing to your brain is you're getting your brain ready, and your brain goes, now what? You're actually firing up, ready to learn. So going back to what you were saying earlier about children being kept in if they haven't done their work, or if they've had a behaviour issue, actually restricting their movement is the worst thing. What they need to do is say, you're struggling with that piece of work, or you haven't been able to behave and contain your behaviour in that environment. Let's take you out of that environment and do something that's going to help your brain, that's going to help you to be able to focus and concentrate and self-regulate.
Yeah.
It's impossible, in my mind, it's impossible to self-regulate your emotional behaviour if you can't move your body. You have to be able to.
Yeah.
You have to.
And I think in the early years, it's almost innate in the children. They know they have to move their bodies, don't they? You can see from a baby how they get into like yoga positions themselves, without you even putting them in them. They know, don't they? Their bodies need to move, and they're designed to move.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't like the word fidget, but children, they need to move constantly. And a lot of times with the children, when we do our relaxation, going all the way to the end, we've gone all the way through our steps and we've gone all the way to the end. What I do say with the little ones particularly is we listen to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So we listen to that, it's nice and peaceful, nice gentle version, but actually I've got them moving their fingers the whole time.
Yeah.
And I'll say, stretch your arms up, wiggle your fingers, bring them down. And then we get to the very, very end of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and then I say, twinkle them on your heart, and they just keep very, very still. Now keep very still and don't move. Because I couldn't say to them, right, children, we're going to relax now. You're going to lie down and you're not going to move a muscle. It goes against everything that their brain is telling them to do. Yeah. They're learning and exploring. Babies put things in their mouths because they need to see them, smell them, taste them, touch them to find out what it is. That's what we're programmed to do. As human beings, we want to explore and we want to learn and feel and taste and touch. We want to use our senses to learn. So why at the age of 2 would we suddenly lie down and keep still to go to sleep? We wouldn't. You wouldn't. You need to move your body. You need to move your body. Or 3 or 4 or 5. It doesn't matter. Or 40 or 50. You've got to get yourself into the right state to be able to relax. It doesn't happen just like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many tips and techniques and ideas there that you've given us. Are there any final tips and ideas that you'd like to give to our early years workforce?
Final tips and ideas. whether you're an adult or a child, I would say you need to make sure that throughout your day you get your daily dose. I think it's probably something that you've heard of. So daily dose. So you've got dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. Now, just by playing alone, you will get your dopamine, oxytocin, and your serotonin. And we all know that if you move your body and you're physical, you release endorphins. So move your body, stretch your body, play and have fun, have some enjoyment, hug. Have a hug, release some oxytocin, even if it's hugging yourself. It's the simplest form of giving yourself a little bit of an oxytocin rush. And just make sure that if you want to rest and relax, that you move your body first. Move your body first. Make sure that your children can move. If they haven't got a big space to move around, give them something that they can do physically with their hands, or with their feet, something physical. Just get moving.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I'm going to try and go and get my daily dose, I think. I think all of the things that you've talked about are so important. In terms of neuroscience and child development, I think it's crucial for the early years workforce to really understand these things fully. So thank you for joining us today, and I'm sure we will have you back again to talk all things early years and all things physical development and all the rest of the things that go with it. So thank you so much, Shelley, for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.